Hi, this is Grace Miller, and I'm currently the Dean of Science at Taylor University, and I used to be a biology professor at Indiana Wesleyan. And I wanted to share some encouraging words with you today. I know that we sure could use more encouragement every day. And I also want to tell you a little bit about how I have grown in my relationship with Jesus Christ and why my faith continues to be what carries me. My parents were immigrants from China to the Philippines, where I was born. And then when I was 10, due to political unrest, we moved to the United States. And it was a hard time for me. I was 10 and I was bullied and ostracized in school. I was different than everybody else. But even in all that, I grew up in a church, and I knew I could find sanctuary there. That when I was in church, when I was at choir practice, I would sneak back into the main chapel area and just sit there in silence and talk to God. When I went to college, or about to go to college, I went to visit my older sister in New York City, who was a Christian. And the sermon that night, I remember clearly, was about Jesus walking by a tree that bore no fruit. And when they came back, Jesus and his disciples, the tree had withered and died. And I felt so convicted that night that that was me. I'd grown up in a church. I'd heard all about the gospel, but I wasn't sure I had really owned it. And I certainly didn't feel like I was bearing fruit. So from that night on, I decided that I would follow Jesus, but it was by no means an easy walk. In college, I had ups and downs, times when I drew close to God, times when I would go to my InterVarsity Christian Fellowship Bible studies, times when I wanted them to leave me alone. But God was persistent. He never let go. Even when I wanted to let go, he didn't let go. So eventually, I worked for a ministry called Young Life out in Colorado. It's a backpacking ministry with high school kids. And just as I was ministering to the kids, God was ministering to me, and my faith grew. And I learned a lot about humility in leading, humility in ministering. At college and university, as I said, I had lots of ups and downs, but probably the greatest challenge was in grad school when I was 2 years into my PhD program, and my experiments all failed. And my professor called me in, and he really didn't like it that I was a Christian. And he made that clear to me, and he said that we had to part ways. I was devastated because I'd already invested 2 years of research in his lab. But God opened another door. I found 2 other professors who said they would welcome me in their lab. And when I told one professor that I had to leave this other lab for the reasons that I stated before, this professor looked at me and said, "It's a blessing in disguise." And he said, "It's not even in disguise. It's a blessing that you leave that lab and come join me." And in 2 years, I finished my PhD. But it was a humbling time. It was disappointing. It was frustrating. And I remember calling my mom, and she said something very wise. She said, "Grace, it's better that you learn humility while you're young than to learn humility when you're older." I'll always remember that. Now, life was not always smooth sailing even after that. I've had some tragedies in my life: the loss of a good friend in a car accident, the loss of my dad prematurely, and also my parents' home burning to the ground. My father's a fairly renowned Chinese painter, and almost all his paintings burned in that fire. But I felt that that was a symbol of that refiner's fire, a reminder from a loving God that things on this earth are temporary, and that it's the things that are eternal that really matter. And that is so important. And that the most important thing is my relationship with God. This verse from Proverbs 3:5-6 really stands out. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and He will make your path straight. And He's really done that. For everything that I feel was taken away, that my desires were not met, He has replaced it with something even better and even more fulfilling. Clearly, God's way is the better way. And I've learned that it's not about God making me happy, but God making me holy. My encouragement to you is to do everything for His glory, no matter whether you're cleaning toilets for a summer camp, or speaking in front of a crowd at a chapel, or writing a letter of encouragement to a friend. Do it all for Him, because He is all that really matters, and He is the one that we want to please. And I hope that you find the peace of Christ in this world that can be so tumultuous, because that peace of Christ is priceless. May God be to God be all the glory.